We are live.
Assalamu alaikum. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Qul a'udhu bi rabbin nas, malikin nas, ilahin nas, min sharri waswasil khannas, والذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الوسواس والناس في أمان الله ناري يا علي اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد في أمان.
Shall I start?
Yes.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters and our elders. Thank you for joining us today for an insightful, inspiring, and thought-provoking session with prominent, successful Muslim women as we discuss the challenges, the resources, ideas, strategies, and lessons from their daily lives, balancing homes, careers, health, and life while being mothers, sisters, wives, daughters, and both are present in their future. Today's program is the fourth program of our series. The topic of today's program is Muslim women and their voices, balancing life, health, family, dream, and career. This program is organized by Payam-e Amn Message of Peace Inc., New Jersey, one of the oldest Shia organizations in New Jersey. It's a publisher with books mostly in English for both youth and adults and has held various Islamic Day seminars, including Hussein Day since 1978. One of the oldest running programs where leaders and religious scholars of different faiths, politicians, academia, and others speak on the Imam for an interfaith perspective, various interfaith workshops and camps for youth. Event is also sponsored by Muslim for Peace, a social religious organization, and is done by With Dignity, both based in New Jersey. It's being broadcasted via Alibet Media from the USA, live stream throughout the world. Our panel of speakers are included Sister Uzma Naqvi from Sheffield, UK, Sister Farzana Hirji Karawali from London, UK, Sister Azra Naqvi from Chicago, USA, Sister Fahima Mahmood from London, UK, and Sister Mehna Shabir from Kansas, USA. So without further ado, I would like to invite my first panel speaker, Sister Farzana Hirji Karawali. Sister Farzana is learning disabilities nurse, RN LD, social worker, holistic therapeutic life coach, and practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming and cognitive behavior therapy. She's also the founder of Inspirational Minds, a founder of Friends Alike, a support group for parents of children with disabilities, and Farzana Inspires Wellbeing, which is a service set up to support people through a range of life issues with the use of holistic therapeutic coaching and personal development training. Her varied professions have given her experiences that are also varied, from working with children to adults and from hospital to community. She strives to bridge the gap between health, social, and emotional care. She finds herself fortunate to have worked as a nurse and social worker while also having experience in mental health. She feels service provisions needs to be less disjointed and more holistic. She's passionate about planning and organizing initiatives that meet the need of people. She feels good when people around her feel good. Without further ado, I would like to ask Sister Farzana Hirji Karawali to incite us with her knowledge today with the salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for today, and thank you for the long introduction. Alhamdulillah, I'm so happy to be amongst such a great panel, and I'm honored to be able to talk today. So thank you so much. So the topic that I'll be discussing today is finding yourself through self-exploration. I'd like to ask you all to just take a few moments while I'm just mentioning a few points to get a pen and paper, because today I know you'll have lots of talks. So I tried to do something a bit different. And I want to ask you a load of questions really today, so you can start self-exploring yourself and maybe work on yourself during the next 30 days, inshallah, of Ramadan. So I'll give you a couple of seconds to go and maybe find a pen and some paper while I just say a couple of points. We tend to spend a lot of time and energy in actually challenging ourselves rather than finding ourselves. And this is usually due to our inner voice. We listen to this negative inner voice that can be so draining, and it really drains us of all the productive energy that we may have. We try to find ourselves through lenses of other people. We don't look at ourselves through a clear lens that shows us in the light that we really are. We look at ourselves from the lights of other people, from their viewpoints, from what they think of us, which is not always accurate. And then this becomes our identity. It's not an authentic identity at all. We build an identity that's not really us. So hopefully you all have a pen and paper with you. And inshallah, this will be recorded, I'm guessing, so you'd be able to go back to these questions again during the 30 days of Ramadan, and inshallah be able to explore further. So to find yourself, you need to understand yourself at a much deeper level. So I'm going to ask you today, what is your mental and emotional state at this current time? How are you feeling right now? Are you happy in this present moment? Are you feeling peaceful in this present moment? We tend to pin happiness and our hopes not on the present moment, but we tend to pin them on circumstances around us. We look at this, how the circumstance around us has an impact on us. But really, true happiness, I understand that there is an impact from the circumstances around us, but true happiness actually is when we are at peace and happy with our inner self within us. And that's something that nobody can touch. Nobody can touch what happens deep within us. It's for us to go deep within ourselves to find that. So I'll ask you another question. Actually, let me first give an example. So there's a difference between inner peace and happiness. We tend to kind of mix them up sometimes. Sometimes we think we need to have both. Some people may be very fortunate and have inner peace and inner happiness, but it's not necessarily the case. You may not always be happy, but you can strive to still try and be at a sense of peace and then work on becoming happy. Or you can be happy, but not necessarily all the time, and you're not always in a sense of peace. So it doesn't mean that you have to have both, but at least if you try to strive towards one, inner happiness or inner peace, then you can strive to having both, inshallah. So if you are happy with your life, then why are you happy? And I'd like you to write that down. And if you are unhappy with your life, then what is it that's making you unhappy? What's the problem? Is there a problem? Is there something that's stopping you from being the optimum person or in the optimum state that you could be in? Do you have any issues that are really troubling you that are close to you, or are the issues that are distant from you in terms of how close are they to your life? Is it something that's happening on a daily basis? Is that something that's happening once in a while? Is it something that you can control, or is it something that's out of your control? And you need to know all this to be able to get to the root cause of how to make yourself feel content and happy and understand how to make changes in your life. So if you have a problem, Do you think that it's something that you can work towards? Is it something that you've thought about before, or is it a challenge that's going to stop you from moving forward? I mean, these questions are a bit vague, but only you can have a look and kind of look inside to see, you know, what relates to you. Obviously, I'm speaking to an audience of very different people. So this is kind of a broad question that I'm putting forward. One problem that we have is when we become too comfortable in our life, we lose the ability to grow. We get very stuck in our ways. We're very unconscious in the way that we form patterns in our life. Humans form patterns and routines, and we tend to find that much easier to be able to maneuver through life, to follow a set routine. We'll go to work the same time, we'll pick up the kids the same time, we'll go and get the shopping on the same day. I guess the only thing that does change, particularly in the UK, is the salah time. That's quite different. And so we have to adapt our meal times and things according to our salah time. But apart from that, I think most of us have quite a set routine and pattern, maybe where your kids go for after school club or things like that. And what happens is when we're so stuck in our routine, we don't allow ourselves any space or time to grow. There's no ability for change. Even if we want to, we struggle to put any form of change into our day. So let me ask you, if you're only given a few days to live, what would you do in those few days? I'm sure there's always something that we can think about that we haven't achieved or we still need to achieve, because none of us can reach that state of perfection that we would want to achieve, but we can always aspire to be at a state of perfection. So if we were only given a few days to live, what would we want to do in those few days? What would you want to change within your daily routine? What new would you want to introduce into your life? And obviously with that, you need to think about a dream plan. So now plan a daily routine that will contribute, part of your life daily routine that would help you to make a transition into the changes that you want to make. Those things that you've identified that only if you had a few days to live, how would you put them into a daily routine, which may make your routine very different from what it is right now. But you'd have to slowly make a transition from the current routine into the new routine. And where exactly would you start this process of change? Pinpoint the time of day, the activity, which activity you're swapping for what, so that you know this is the point in which you're going to start making the change. You might find that there are days where you don't achieve any change, you don't achieve what you want to do, but that doesn't mean you need to get disheartened or kind of lose all hope and not continue to make the change. What you need to do actually is to reflect on what is the obstruction. What's stopping you from making that change and forming a plan? And how can you better that plan? So it's always about reflection, constant reflection. It didn't work, that's fine. How else can I make things different in my life? And keep reflecting on that. In our childhood, we are our innate selves. So when we were younger, we were our innate selves. We were our true identity. And as life goes on, we tend to adapt, we tend to sacrifice and adopt other people's lifestyles into our life so that we can live a smooth and better life amongst others, because we don't live in isolation. We do live with other people. So over the years, we tend to change our ways. And in some ways, when we find ourselves in difficult situations, we don't always know what to do and how to react. And we may react in a way that's not always the way we want to react. And this is simply because whilst compromising and adopting and changing our ways all those years, we've ended up losing ourselves And we don't truly understand who we are anymore because we've changed so much. We change for our spouse, we change for our family, we change for our children, we change for our work. And we sometimes feel we're improving ourselves, which might be the case, but in the process, we lose who we are. We don't understand ourselves as well. So I think what we need to do is try and find a way to find out who we are as an innate being. And the best way to do that would be to write down or think about what you appreciated and what you enjoyed in your childhood. So when you were young, what did you enjoy? What did you treasure? What did you feel was very important to you? And I mean, think about what you did that made you smile. It doesn't have to be anything big. It could be something very simple, very basic. And these are the things that could bring us happiness today. These are the things that could regulate us. What did we do when we were sad? What did we do when we were happy, when we were younger? Because we may have been able to regulate ourselves then. Maybe now we are struggling with, turbulence of life and the way things are going. We may be struggling with our own emotions. We may find ourselves in a low mood quite often, and very unregulated in some ways. So the best way to try and find how you can regulate yourself is first see if you are true to yourself. Are you trying to be somebody that you're not? And if so, who are you? Let's go back in time and have a look at what made us happy when we were younger. So some of these things can bring us happiness and make us feel kind of regulated if we can identify what they are. And if this is a tool or a skill or something, then note that down. Make sure you have that recorded. I feel that when we write things, we can always go back to it. But when it's in our mind, we tend to forget, unless it's a strong memory. So I also want to ask you, because I know my time is running out soon, if there was a tool or a skill that you could use as service to the world and that could make an impact on the world, what would it be? What can you offer to people in the world? What are your qualities? What is your tool? Identifying things like this can help us to feel more confident about ourselves and understand what are the beauty of us as an individual is. And a lot of the time we don't appreciate ourselves and we don't appreciate what skills we hold and the difference it can make to people. We take it for granted. We're already using the skills most of the time, but we just take ourselves for granted. So once you've identified what that tool is, I want you to also think, if there is somebody in this world that inspires you, somebody in your life that you find inspirational, I want you to identify who that person is and what they do. What they do that you feel so inspired about. And list 3 things that that person can offer. And then maybe go back to what you can offer and think about that again. So there's a whole load of questions that I've put to you today, which I'm very sure you haven't been able to answer all in detail. So inshallah, if you can go back through the recording and have a look, and hopefully this will start a process where you can at least think. Now, before I end, I just want to say that subhanAllah, we are reaching the holy month of Mahr Ramadan very soon. And I think in preparation for that, maybe if we could go online and look at different reflective cycles. I know a lot of people do journaling. Sometimes the journaling may last a few days, sometimes longer. Sometimes we end up answering repetitive questions and we kind of get tired and don't continue. What I would suggest is that journaling is good, but also try using reflective cycles and reflective practice. And like Imam Ali has said, that we should reflect every day. So maybe once a day, maybe after iftar, when we need some peace and quiet. We could sit down, use a reflective cycle, think about our day, pick one point in our day and actually reflect on it, whether it's a discussion with somebody, whether it's something that we feel we've done that might not be very good, whether it's something that we've done that's well, it doesn't matter. But at least every day in the next 30 days, if we can find one thing that we can reflect on. The reflective cycle that I use, and I've always used as a nurse, is the Gibbs reflective cycle. So if you search that, you'd definitely find a cycle there, and it's very self-explanatory. You can see the different areas that you can ask questions to yourself. And the beauty about a cycle is that you can go back over those questions again and again, and you'll always find a new answer. So inshallah, I hope I've given you a small taster into how to find yourself and explore further. And obviously this is just very at an introductory level, but I hope it can help, and inshallah we can start looking deeper during inshallah the month of Mahr Ramadan. Thank you so much. Wassalam.
Alaikum assalam. Thank you so much for providing such a wonderful speech. It was helpful to understand how we can separate different aspects of life to keep the balance. And I believe also that the Ramadan will be a really helpful month to do that practically. Also, I wanted to ask you if you have any contact information that you wanted to share with our viewers. You can also give it to Brother Hassan or myself, and you can share it on social media for yourself. So our next panel speaker is Sister Uzma Naqvi. Sister Uzma Naqvi is a senior transformational coach and the founder of Club 313, club313.org, which is a platform for youth empowerment in the areas of emotional, physical, professional, spiritual, and cognitive and social development. She's a qualified holistic transformational life coach, practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming and cognitive behavior therapy. She is a certified in thought field therapy, tapping therapy. She's an author in the making, inshallah, founder of global nonprofit organization Club 313, dedicated to youth empowerment, and the mother of 4 beautiful children, mashallah. She's offering a free gift for her audience for Ramadan. So they would just have to need to contact her via email. Her contact information is contact@uzmanaqvi.org, or you can join her private Facebook group, which is for ladies only, called Take Control of Your Life. There's a link that will be also sharing that. So before further ado, I would like to ask Sister Uzma Naqvi to please come forward and delighted with our speech. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. First and foremost, I would like to say a huge thank you to Ahlul Bayt Media, Brother Hassan. I've been a part of similar panels with Ahlul Bayt Media before as well, and it's always been such a pleasure being here. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. It's an honor for me to be here, especially amongst so many amazing people. And after listening to Sister Farzana's amazing talk, I hope that I can give you nuggets as well that you will be able to take away and actually practically, inshallah, apply to your lives. And I'm also looking forward to the rest of the panelists. We have amazing ladies here. So inshallah, they all have some fantastic information that we will be able to use. So today I am asked to discuss a very important topic, which we all have to deal with on a daily basis, which is stress management and inner peace. Stress management is the one we deal with on a daily basis, and inner peace is what we're looking for, inshallah. You know, research shows that over 63% of workers are ready to quit their jobs because of how much stress they're dealing with. And 54% of those workers report that stress is actually affecting their home life. They're carrying that into their home life from work. And these are the stats for Western world, but it's like that throughout, I guess, wherever we would look. Stress is something that everyone's dealing with in one way or another. So when people try to just keep going, get things done, but internally they're just filled with negative emotions, and the bodies are filled with stress, the performance in anything they're trying to do, or the relationships they're trying to uphold, or just their general well-being is very much affected. Everything tends to suffer. Yet many people have been so stressed for so long that they've actually just become used to it. It's just the way they live, and they don't even realize how much it's affecting them on a daily basis. And the other thing they don't realize is how better things can actually be if they became conscious of this. And often, unfortunately, it takes some kind of a wake-up call, maybe like a divorce or a loss of a job or a physical illness, before a person becomes aware that something is wrong and something actually needs to be done about it. In psychology, there's a term for perpetual pain, perpetual uncomfortable circumstances that we just get used to living with, called background stress. And the chances are that unless you're already highly practiced in relaxing deeply through meditation and lots of other practices, or are into self-development, you are probably experiencing some of that right now. And it often goes unnoticed in our bodies for a long while before it surfaces in some form or another. But if you are somebody, if you can relate to if you can think about yourself being in bad mood regularly, or you're losing or have lost your sense of humor, a sense of enjoyment of life's little moments, or that you're suffering from headaches or migraines, or that you're forgetful or making like silly mistakes, you feel this heaviness or depression or anxiety, or there's physical pain and illnesses, you are probably, that is exactly what's going on. You're dealing with background stress all of the times. And ironically, it's only when people begin to relax, become conscious, take notice, that they realize that the tension was there all of the time. So before that, they, like I said, they just keep going. So they can't really realize that it's actually there. So emotions are actually a good thing if we use them in the correct way. Emotions are our body's wisdom, and they are innately gifted to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they're designed to give us a message, to tell us something needs to be done. It's us that don't take that notice. And so they alert us to keep us safe, and particularly from like dangerous environment, danger or any kind of things that are happening in our environment that we need to protect ourselves from. They're there to kind of tell us that something needs to be done. It's like in our internal system that lets us know that something is wrong by creating some kind of a change in our mind. And that chemistry that is released and then that's why we become all of those things happen. These are the stresses that cause these things to happen. So if you've ever experienced sort of knots in your stomach, or if you're becoming aggressive, or if you are feeling fearful or irritated all of the times, or you can't focus on things and you feel like you can't fall asleep sometimes, chances are that this is your body paying the price for those moments of feeling stressed continuously all of the times. And being emotionally unhealthy it hurts everything in our life. Right. And I know that from personal experience, and I bet that you can relate to this as well. If my emotions are out of control, I can't think clearly, which is going to have a negative effect on everything else that's going on in my life. Right. It means that I would have a hard time being productive, which is going to affect the work that I do. It's going to obviously cause issues in my finances, perhaps. The inner and the outer environment all end up suffering. And especially as a parent, it really affects our parenting, right? Because one, we're not as connected and we're not present with our kids, but the other thing is that we're actually setting a really bad example for them, and we're giving them a blueprint of how to deal with life by being constantly in a bad mood and down all the time, right? So that means that nothing actually ends up working in our life when we're constantly experiencing, anger and stress and anxiety and overwhelm on a consistent basis. And it has a huge impact on our physical health as well. And there is tons of research that shows that this is the case. Chronic emotional distress is actually more dangerous than even smoking. Anxiety and chronic anxiety, depression, anger, all of these emotions are really toxic and literally release chemicals into our brain, and that goes into our bloodstream and makes us feel sick, makes us be sick. Like, I don't just mean like physical sick, like actually physically being sick, but I mean it wears you out, right? Internally, it makes you old, and it literally sometimes kills you earlier than you were supposed to die, because you just haven't taken care of what's going on, and you haven't noticed those alarm systems, the body's wisdom that's giving you all this information. So it's not a matter that we can say, I'll get to myself, I'll pay attention to this when I have time. It is actually paramount that we make this our number one priority, right? And to make ourselves feel better. Many people live years of their life in stress mode. So their body's way of operating just naturally becomes fight or flight mode. It just kicks in. That's what you're operating on all of the time. And this is actually really, really exhausting for your body, right? It's overworking all of the times. And fight or flight mode wasn't there for us to be using all of the times. It's there for us to deal with real stressful and dangerous situations, right? It prepares, it gives a response for when we are in a situation where we might have to flee that situation. There's a threat in front of us, or we might have to fight that situation, right? So it's very, very important. The point to note here is that when we're in that fight or flight mode, it could even be triggered when we're sat on the comfort of our sofa just at home doing nothing. And the way that could happen is we might be revisiting a scenario in our mind of an argument that happened last week, a decade ago, 2 months ago, or whenever. And while we're playing that reel of what happened in our mind actually has no way of knowing whether that scenario that's happening in your mind is happening right now, or if it's just happening in your mind. It doesn't know between the reality or in your mind, right? So you can see that when you're putting yourself in that kind of a situation where your body is kicking in the fight or flight response, but there is no danger, right? In reality, there's no actual threat that it's having to fight off, then your body is having to work extra hard to, it's still releasing all those chemicals, right? And walking around in a constant state of alarm has alarming health consequences, like I've said, right? And so one of our goals should be, the main goals should be to reset our internal stress mechanisms to a healthy, useful, and more appropriate level of sensitivity. And we can do this in two main ways. One of the ways is that we have to start to understand the cause of our stress, right? So that gives us an ability to protect ourselves, that we're not continually emotionally overwhelmed. We're not just living in that state all of the times. And secondly, it's about learning to reactivate your body's natural stress reduction system so that you can feel really good for no other reasons than the fact that you've actually trained yourself to feel good whenever you feel like feeling good. Right. So you don't have to wait until a certain scenario. It's like that if and then model of happiness is like, if this happens, then I will be happy. If I get this job, then I will be happy. If I buy that house, then I'll be happy. It's like not being in that mode, but actually being able to create that environment in whatever journey it is that you're having at the moment. And we're all going through situations that might not be ideal, but we can train our minds and our bodies so that we're not kicking in that the chemical that is released when fight or flight mode is kicked in, because that is, like I said, is associated with our the physical aspect, the heart rate and the blood pressure. And too little of that chemical, it makes us really sleepy and lethargic. So the other side isn't good either. And too much of it is like your thoughts are literally running away with you, and you become twitchy and you become nervous, and your hands and feet can get cold, and there's a lot of blood pressure that you're having to deal with, right? So, and sometimes we experience a lot of like aches and pains in our body, and we don't actually know why. You might be somebody really young, but you feel so like achy and not well within yourself. And a lot of that is to do with the fact that your body is literally overworking itself to get out of this mode that you've put it inside of, right? And sadly, most people turn to medication. A lot of people actually turn to medication, like antidepressants, to get out of this. But there is so much that we can do ourselves to make the situation better. We don't have to resort to medication. We don't have to force or fake some kind of release in our mind of the chemicals that we need. We can actually produce them ourselves with like working alongside our brain to help it release those chemicals in ourselves. There are literally thousands of ways that we can manage stress. But when we shift our attention from our head to our heart, your body relaxes, your mind gets clearer, and your brain releases a different type of a chemical inside. It makes you naturally really, really relaxed. And people talk about mind work, and me being a life coach, I'm a huge advocate of the power of your mind and how much you can change just by becoming aware of your thought processes and how that affects the way you the way you feel, and how that affects the way in the way that you behave. But aside from the mind work, which is utterly powerful, and we all have to learn something about it so that we can become more in control of whatever is happening. But still, people are feeling like there's something missing. So what is that missing piece? What is it that even after we might have done some mind work and we're trying to do certain things, but it feels like nothing seems to work, or there is still that cycle of perpetual pain that we're dealing with? To me, I feel like the missing piece is the heart, right? It's not in alignment with our mind. We have to sync our heart and our mind. We have to bring it to harmony. We have to have it working together so that it's in control. Both of them are in control. See, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks of reformation in the Quran, he refers to the qalb, he refers to the heart. He says, look, change your hearts so that your situations can change, right? Paraphrasing, obviously. And that means that there is something hugely in here, in our hearts, that is going to bring us peace, that is going to bring inner peace. And that's not something that can happen in a webinar like this. We can obviously talk about the concept, but it is not something that can literally change over a moment. The mind can change over a moment. We can just shift our mind and heart, but there's still a lot of deep work to be done. And sometimes it could take weeks, months, even years. But, if you have a process, then that is something that you can actually accelerate and do a lot quicker. It is something I talk to my clients about a lot, in a lot of depth, because look, we are souls having a human experience. So we're all having to deal with a different side of ourselves that isn't visible, that we can't sense with the five sensory gifts that we have. So then we have to become aware of how this works. We have to pay attention where it's required, right? And a total transformation that I talk about includes the work that we have to do in our heart. And it brings that coherence of head and heart together so that you can truly bring a lasting change into your life, that you're not just hopping from one thing or another, or you're not collecting pieces from here and there and it doesn't make sense because there's too much and there is no practicality behind it. You have to have coherence in whatever it is you're doing, right? But I wanted to, obviously that's a longer term process and not everyone would embark on that journey. But I'm just saying that for the purpose of today, I just want to mention a few practical things that you could possibly be doing to reduce the stress that you might be going through. And one of the top ones that I'd really love to talk about, that I personally have experienced, it changed my way of dealing with stress in a huge way, and that is meditation. It's literally one of the best ways. It is the game changer, right? Meditation is a way to shift our state in the moment, to become more relaxed and to become more available, right? To be more clear and to be fearless and to be caring as well towards yourself and the external environment that you're in, right? And all of us need to do this. It's a way for us to focus and become aware of our emotions and our feelings and our thoughts. And it brings out more a compassionate side of us, of ourselves as well. And meditation is all about being okay with taking time out for yourself, giving yourself that permission to just not do anything sometimes, being mindful of the mind and taking that time out, right? It gives you that mental fitness, the presence, and the ability to set intentions, especially if you're doing it first thing in the morning. It literally resets, it helps you reset your day, and it brings about a lot of calmness. And there are lots of different types of meditations. And one of them is to actually relax you. Meditation is for restfulness, but there's a different type of meditation as well, which is visualization meditation, which is more of an active way of meditating. And that is, so for example, meditation will be to calm your nervous system, whereas visualization is going to reprogram your subconscious mind. Visualization is turning a problem into a project and shifting your mind into changing the reality by gaining an insight of what the potential is of that project, right? What you can actually do with that information that you've got, and how you can actually see it before it happens. It's about guiding your thoughts and visualizing that a scenario, and imagining that scenario. Because look, this is one of the things that places us as Ashraf al-Makhluq, as the highest of creations. It's not just the ability to think, it's the ability to be able to imagine. And then on top of that, we have been given the free will to do whatever we can with the tools that have been innately implanted inside of us. So why not make use of these, right? We have to get ourselves in a position that we can demand, we can literally pick and choose what kind of a life that we want to have. And I know that it's so much easier to point the finger and say, I can't be this person because that person won't let me, or because this is happening or that's happening in our lives. And taking responsibility is one of the first steps in becoming coachable for yourself, like becoming a person who's adaptable, becoming a person who's able to see change happen and accept change happen and take responsibility, be 100% responsible for everything that's happening around in your life. And visualization is one of those ways where you can actually see the bestest of scenarios, if that's a word, of that particular area of your life, it panning out the way you want to. And a simple example of that is almost every athlete, before they go out and perform, they will visualize themselves in that competition. They will visualize themselves actually winning, right? And that really helps them improve their outcome, right? So we want to be able to harness this and get this under our belt so that we can really utilize this. And you can do this anywhere, anytime. We don't have to be in any particular, as long as we can get moments of quiet time, we can really change things. And with that, I have a little bit of a gift for you. So listen to the end of my talk, and inshallah, I'll give you some instructions on how that's, what that is and how you can get hold of it. The second thing I wanted to mention, aside from meditation, another practical thing is changing the meaning that we give to situations, changing the perspective of how we look at something, right? And this will change the emotion that we give out, and therefore the behavior is naturally going to be different as well. So if you're looking to change your mood, change the meaning you're taking from that triggering event at that time. So when you ask yourself, how can I control my emotions? What you really want to be asking is, how can I assign a positive meaning to the event instead of letting that negative feeling linger? So you have the power to shift your mindset and to improve your life, because it's actually happening for you and not happening to you. And when we realize that, we are much more prepared to be able to find the gift in that tragedy, to be able to find that gift in whatever it is that's holding us down and anchoring us to that pain. We can actually start to change that. Even in the most tragic events, there is something beautiful wrapped inside. And we have to have that ability. And we can't do that unless we tap into our intuition. And we can't be intuitive unless we tap into meditation and calm ourselves, right? Help slow our days down. The third thing that I really would love to refer you guys to is learning some NLP techniques. They really do work. And there are lots and lots of them. Just one or two I might mention here, and I'm conscious of time, is something called association. So let's say you want to boost your confidence, right? Or boost your self-esteem. you have an association with something that you can associate your confidence being built with. Obviously, in NLP terms, they'll say maybe a song, but I'm not going to refer you to a song. I'm going to say maybe an ayah of the Quran, maybe a nasheed that you really, really like. Right. So if that makes you feel really powerful and really confident, then you can actually assign, like actually say this to yourself. I am assigning my confidence, my self-esteem to this. And then you can start humming it in any situation where you're starting to feel your confidence dip a little bit. And it sounds like really, really simple, but actually does work when you start to have those internal debates and conversation. And the second one, which Sister Farzana alluded to a little bit as well in her talk, is killing that voice inside. We all have that internal voice, right? And we're all having to deal with it in one way or another. It reminds us of why we're not worthy and why we're not good enough and why things can't work out the way we want them to. But in the technique of killing the voice, we focus on finding that voice in the first place. Like, who is it that's talking to you? What does that sound like? And once you get clarity on that sound, then you can change it. And I would recommend changing it to something funny, like a cartoon character, so that you can't even take it seriously next time it tells you you're not worthy. Literally, what I did for myself, like, this is funny, because my favorite character when I was younger was Tweety Pie. And my kids will kill me for doing this. But basically, Tweety Pie, the way it used to talk is, I saw a putty tat. I saw a putty tat. And so when you put it like that, and let's say that voice that Tweety Pie is saying to me, you're not, like, who are you to say this or whatever? I'll be like, not taking you seriously, mate. I know myself and I'll carry on doing what I'm doing. So you see my point? Like, you kill that voice or you change it into something that you can't even take seriously anymore. And the fourth thing that I wanted to mention is to understand, please, sisters and brothers, whoever's listening, understand that you do not have to live in perpetual pain. It hurts me to know how many people, and I was one of those people, literally live with pain day in, day out, and only because they're not aware that they can come out of it. And if you're that person, for God's sake, reach out to someone, talk to somebody. It's okay to talk to somebody. It's okay to say, look, I'm living with pain. I want to get out of it. And it's okay to ask for help. You really must do this to yourself, for yourself, because life is a beautiful gift. And now that the whole world has slowed down, it's a time for reflection. So rather than hating this time and thinking I'm stuck inside, I'm nothing to do, I'm feeling lonely, there's no one to talk to, I can't meet my friends, think of it in a different way. Introspect, like, use this time to re-emerge in a different version of yourself. So many people have been able to do that if they're utilizing their time correctly. So you really, really can. Don't live with, I mean, there are lots of things that I can tell you as to how to stop living in perpetual pain, but honestly, like, right now it's not the right time to, like, I just don't have enough time. But I would just say, take that word that I'm saying, don't live with perpetual pain. If you are somebody who's living with constant heartache or whatever it is you're going through, you need to, and if you're not being able to fix it yourself, then please reach out to somebody and do something about it so you're not having to live in it. The fifth thing, and again, like, if you've still got that pen and paper that Sister Farzana got you to take, please write down what is your perpetual pain. Write it down. What is it? What's causing you constant problem? Is it your financial life? Is it your weight? Is it your relationships? Let's get conscious about what it is, right? Sit down, think about it, write it down. And if you can't come out with ways to come out of it, then seek help, because then it's right in front of you, black and white. You can't get away from that, right? Writing things down makes it so much more real. We think we know, but remember, we're using 5% of our conscious mind. Rest of everything that we're doing is 95% is all in our subconscious mind. So we're not aware of it. It's deep-seated. It's not even something that we can think about. It's just programmed, right? So please become aware of that. The fifth thing I want to mention is creating the recipe for your happiness. There's a recipe, just like you can cook chicken buna and you have to have certain things that you put in, and you can't, if you don't have chicken, you can't cook chicken buna, right? In the same way, you can't create happiness without having certain pieces of things that you need the recipe that you need, the ingredients that you need in order for you to create that state for yourself, right? What is your recipe for happiness? And there's a recipe for everything. There's a recipe for jealousy. There is a recipe for envy. There is a recipe for hate. There is a recipe for any emotion that you're feeling. So instead of choosing those ones that are triggering, like bad stuff, choose the ones that are good for you. Think about how is happiness generated in your life? What kind of things do you love to do? Like Sister Farzana was talking about. What is it that you love to? What did you love to do when you were a child, like she says? And what do you love to do now? What makes you joyful? What makes you calm? For me, like a walk in nature. I live quite near Peak District, which is an amazing place here. And if I start feeling that heaviness, I know my recipe is like, go out there and have a walk, take a few deep breaths. It literally programs me, resets me. So find yours and write it down. Like make a list of all the recipes that are like great, and then all the triggering points. So you're aware. When you're aware, you're in such a better place to be prepared, to make conscious decisions, right? Sorry, I'm aware of time. I'm going to try and speed things up really quickly. Sixth one I want to mention very quickly is called the reverse gap analysis. And this is, so this is about looking back at like the last decade of your life, or last 5 years even. Just last 5 years of your life, draw a timeline and then write down each year, and then do like in the timeline, write down each year, and then just write like a brain dump type thing. Just write down in each year, what did you achieve? What have you been doing in the past 5 years, and how have you progressed? Because we think we're failing because that's all we're focusing on, right? We think it's all bad, everything's going wrong, but there is so much good that's happened. And if you don't take the time out to learn that and tell yourself and remind yourself, you're going to feel really unaccomplished and fail. And by the way, failing is not a bad thing, but do that. After writing this, take a moment to reflect on what you've achieved and how far you've come. And there is so much more you can do. And then lastly, like exercise. This seems like everybody talks about exercise, but it actually really, really, really does helps you because it releases endorphins, the happy hormone, and it's a real feel good thing. And even if it's not like a lot, you should definitely still do that. There are some really good practical ways of being able to master your emotions. Very, very quickly, I would say identify what you're really feeling. Like, what are you really, really feeling? What is it? What are you really feeling? And acknowledge that and appreciate your emotions. Know that they're there to support you, right? They're there to give you a message. So you have to, when I talk to my clients, I'm like, imagine like a floating envelope right in front of you and open it, like look at it, see what it's telling you. Because the more you push it down, the more they're going to come up again. So don't push them down. Listen to them. Listen to your emotions. Get really curious about the message that your emotions are offering you. See what you can do. Challenge yourself to to actually solve that problem. Get really confident about the fact that you can master that. You will have done it previously. Revisit that and then say, I can do this again. Those talks can really, really help you. And get really certain about the fact and excited about the fact that you can take action. You're in control now because now you know, right? Breathing, I always say, is your powerhouse. Always breathe deeply. Take time out in the middle of your day when kids are screaming. It's a chaos in your house, but then you can just go into the kitchen or bathroom or wherever you need to and just take a few deep breaths and just realign yourself so that you don't have to put up with this, and channel your energy in the right way, right? I think I've gone way over my time. I don't even know if I have or not. I'm sure I have, but it's Ramadan's coming up, and I obviously this is an amazing platform, and I would like to offer you guys a free gift, which is a visualization meditation, which is a reprogramming of your mind to get confident, to start seeing yourself in a better light, to start shedding some of the labels that you've been carrying from childhood when you were told you were this and you were that and you were not good and whatever else, to get rid of those, to reprogram your mind. And this is something that I would like to give to you. If you would like it, my contact email is contact@uzmanakvi.com, not org, it's .com. So I'm sure it'll come up somewhere, or if it doesn't, just follow me on social media, and inshallah I will get that to you. I also have a private Facebook group for Muslim women who are actively seeking to enhance their lives and make themselves practical and become better in whatever it is they're doing. So it's called Take Control of Your Life. So if you find that Uzma Naqvi, you'll see it on my Facebook page. You can follow me from there. And that's it. I will now leave you with Sister Sabah. Thank you so much for your time. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate some of the meditation mantras that you have mentioned. I also personally have to find time to try some of the techniques that you mentioned today. I really appreciate for your time. So because we are a little bit behind the time right now, so I just wanted to jump up to our next speaker, so we can have our speakers give us more insights about today's topic. So our next speaker is Sister Azra Naqvi. Sister Azra has an academic background in education leadership, accounting, and social work. She earned her Master's of Arts in Educational Leadership from Argosy University in 2013 and is currently completing her Doctor of Arts in Education Leadership from National Louis University. She is the principal founding member of Hadi School of Excellence in Chicago, hadischool.org. She is also a member of the Teacher Preparation Advisory Board at the National College of Education, National Louis University, a member of Advisory Board of Rice Academy, member of the Principal Center, and a board member of Council of Islamic School of North America. Her today's topic is the negative effects of toxic stress and trauma on children and buffering it with positive relationships. Jazakallah.
Thank you so much, Sister Sabah. I'm honored to be part of this with this esteemed group of individuals, mashallah, and I've really enjoyed the topics that was discussed just a few minutes ago. I wanted to share my screen and have a PowerPoint I would like to share. See if I can. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you so much again. My topic is the negative effects of stress and trauma on children and how positive relationship can buffer the effects of these things. So again, I'm honored to be here. Jazakallah khair. And I want to thank Ahbab Media for inviting me. My presentation is a brief overview of the understanding the adverse effect of stress on children and understanding what causes stress in the children and ways to develop resilience in our children. And I wanted to, first of all, start off by saying that, as we've seen in this particular slide, there are so many challenges that we have been facing, especially due to those the pandemic that we've been facing for the past year now. And I know that we have a lot in our plates. We as adults are living in stress, and as Sister Uzma very eloquently described how we as adults have to make sure we take care of ourselves, and we have different techniques that we follow in order for us to take care of our children, right? So, and it is so monumental, so important. I'm as you mentioned, I'm the principal of the school, as well as the part of the Council of Islamic School of North America, and in other areas where I am constantly in touch with parents and family members and students that talk about what is going on, especially in this current day of pandemic. And speaking with the parents and even looking at the statistics, unfortunately, the nationwide closure has really negative impact on over 91% of the world's children population, according to one of the research. And the home confinement and of the children, including the uncertainty, the anxiety, which is as a result of the disruption in their education, right? Lack of physical activities and lack of socialization has really impacted their day-to-day life. And when you look at the statistics, according to the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, the amount of mental health reported in 2020 suddenly spiked up in April in compared to May number, or in compared to the 2019 numbers. And that is as a result of the different medical attention that the children needed as a result of this. And if you look at the 2018 statistics, 2 out of 3 children in the United States have been faced with traumatic events in their lives under the age of 16. And that number basically, as you can see, probably would have increased because of the fact that this pandemic has happened. And I wanted to talk about the effects, but now I wanted to talk about the different stress level, why stress is harmful to the children. Stress is harmful in general, right, as Sister Uzma talked about, but especially for the children, because stress is real and has a profound impact on the behavior, learning, and retention of the information of children. And it has that huge impact on their brain. And I think that's fascinating to me when I learned about how, and especially in day-to-day life when I've been, with the children in the school, because when the child perceives a situation as stressful, then a stress that can start to have a negative impact on their body, right? Body and mind. And sometimes even when they have a negative view of themselves, that also causes that stressful situation. And according to neuroscience, when we are under stress, then you activate that brain that is called the amygdala, the part of the brain that really gets activated, that is the fight and flight response that, as Sister Uzma was mentioning. And at that point, our other part of the brain, which is the prefrontal cortex, that is responsible for the executive function or the thinking, logic, temporarily shuts down. And it also affects the learning of the children. And another part of the brain that is called the hippocampus, which is responsible for the memory, short-term memory, long-term memory, and the part of the brain that is responsible for learning also gets compromised. And on top of that, yes, the chemical that is secreted in their brain, with the cortisol, is very harmful to the child, because overdose of that, constantly secreting of that the chemical actually is harmful to their brain. And if you look at this specific picture of a brain that could show how an optimal functioning, normal functioning brain compared to the brain of a child that has been traumatically, has had acute stress situation, you can actually see that there are holes in the brain because of the MRI. You can actually see that the brain physically impacted, that actually changes the structure and physiological structure of the brain. So this is profound. This is important for us to know and understand how stress is very harmful to the child. Now, the other question that we can ask is stress always harmful to the child? And the answer is not quite, because yes, there are some different situations in the life of a child that may be stressful but may not be traumatic. According to the Harvard University and the National Science Council had discussed different structures and different ways of stress that are positive. So for example, a positive stress could just be meaning that a child is anticipating there's an exam that is going to happen, or a moment of excitement, or there may be giving a speech on this, on the stage, meeting other people. Anything could be, stressful that gives them a time of where they are motivated and they're excited. And that's the part of the brain that the prefrontal cortex actually, sparks up, and they're learning and they're very sharp at that time. Now, the other part of the brain, other part of the stress that really is, it's called the tolerable stress, which is really a brief grief that the child goes through, that is an episode of bullying, or a death in the family, or even COVID-19, the illnesses. This is all part of that stress where the child is exposed to some sort of a traumatic situation, but it is coupled with relief. It is coupled with parents who are there to guide them, support them, and really help them cope and recover, because that is the most important and difference between a child who is in the situation or a toxic situation. So tolerable stress is a situation when the parent is there to help them, support them. But believe it or not, research also shows that a tolerable situation, stress with a parent being there for them, really also bring that child to become resilient. So resilient because it actually stimulates the brain function. The other part of the stage that we absolutely don't want our children to be is called the toxic stress. And toxic stress is where the child is exposed to frequent and prolonged activation of that stress hormone that we were discussing just earlier. And that with an absence of support, absence of a parent who is there to day-to-day to guide them and support them. And that is the crucial point in the life of a child, that the child is exposed to severe chronic stress that the child is not developmentally ready to handle. And there's no reprieve, no end in sight. And unfortunately, a lot of the children we find a lot of children in the situation. So if this prolonged stress causes that brain function to not function well, because the child is not able to think, because it's a prolonged stress, the child is not able to function, and really even day-to-day life, day-to-day school situation becomes stressful for them because they are exposed to these extremities. And toxic stress really causes, there's a huge research that talks about the adverse childhood experiences. Adverse childhood experiences, ACE, is a term given to describe all types of abuse, neglect, and other traumatic experiences that occurs in the individuals under the age of 18. And there's a huge research that was done, especially one of the research about the Kaiser Experimente research, that they studied 17,000 patients, adult patient, and they examined the relationship between these people's childhood experiments, or adverse childhood experiences during their childhood, and the reduction in their health and well-being later on in their life. So this is any child who's experienced these unfortunate situations does have a negative impact in their life. And this research qualifies that. So the question then is, how can family, parents, adult, guardian buffer the effects of stress? There is a large body of evidence that has shown the importance of the positive, reciprocal, and responsive human relationship, especially during the child's earlier years, actually have a profound effect, according to the research that was done. And that positive outcome counterbalances the negative outcome. So if a child is experienced with certain traumatic situation, it gets counterbalanced with the positive situation that the parents and the child and the caregivers can give that child, that really helps to nurture, support, that the parent is present, the parent is seen, the parent is soothing, and the parent is giving them that sense of security for that child that allows them to feel that nourishment, allows them to cope and recover. Again, cope and recover is probably one of the most important things that you can give your child in order for them to buffer their experiences. It is because it is that early years when the brain is malleable and the neuroplasticity in the brain is very high, and that is leading for them to learn, giving them the higher chance of that cognitive and non-cognitive skill development. And that positive relationship has active ingredients in the child's life. One of the study that was done by the US researchers who looked at the research market, the labor market of growth stunt toddlers in the Jamaican family, And what they did was they divided the entire family into, or entire group into 3 different groups. One group receives this nurturing nutrition supplement for their healthy growth. Another family received weekly guidance from community officials that offers them primary focuses on planning and playing and interacting and really developing that non-cognitive skills with the toddlers to develop their growth for over 2 years. And the control group didn't receive any of these support. And after about 20 years, they did a longitudinal data study and found that the toddlers who received these nutrition and the control group had no effect. However, the toddlers who had a positive interrelationship with the parents during their childhood years actually show a marked increase in their IQ. It showed that their earnings averaged 25% more than the control group and the group that didn't receive any service. So this actually shows that it does have a huge impact. What you do with your child makes a big difference. And so how can family members and parents build resilience in children? If you can see this picture, you can see that this is a flower that is blooming from a concrete, right? Looks like this flower has beat all the odds, fought and really pushed through difficulties and was brave enough to bloom out from the concrete. You can say that this flower is resilient. So really, resilience may be understood as a capacity for a child to deal with the stress and pressures, to cope with everyday challenges, and to really bounce back from disappointments and mistakes or traumas, and to really develop clear and realistic goals to solve problems in their life and to really interact comfortably with others. So now the question then comes to, how can we build resilience? Do we want to make sure we build students who are resilient, as we talked about? And there's research that was done by Brooks and Goldstein that talks about 5 different tool posts that you can say that the parents can understand and maybe learn how to build resilience. So I'm just going to quickly go over the few information that I have. And the first one is the empathic listening. The parents need to really listen to the children in a way that is called empathic, meaning active listening. Listening to children in a way that you put yourself in their shoes, which really you have to suspend your own judgments and really give them the validation that they're being heard. And sometimes you may think that that's just easy. I always talk to my child, but sometimes we project our own autobiography on their children, and we don't really listen to them. We don't really understand them. And that sometimes causes them to disconnect and withhold information. But instead, we learn that resilient children demonstrate a capacity to really communicate their feelings and thoughts, and their parents serve as an important model for that purposes. So it's really important for us to develop that way of learning and understanding and being with listen to them very attentively. It's very important. Second one is the growth mindset. Resilient children tend to perceive mistakes as opportunities for learning and have a growth mindset. In contrast, you see children who are not very hopeful or have a fixed mindset often experience mistakes as indication of failure, right? So those people may likely flee from challenges or feeling inadequate about anything they're making mistakes, or blaming others for making mistakes. So parents are needing to build resilient children. They must then have to give them that support to really let them make mistakes and let them really work with their child rather than being upset with them for their mistakes. Allow them to make mistakes and learn from them and support them at that time, because it is a stressful situation when a child makes a mistake. So it's really important to kind of give them that capacity to allow them to grow. The third one is developing responsibility. And that is huge. I think that developing responsibility and compassion and a social consciousness is important by providing them opportunities to contribute to different areas. And one of the most effective way is to nurturing responsibility by giving them a helping drive, if you may say, allowing them to do things that they could do, that is, they can developmentally ready to handle. Let them make a choice, let them do something. If you go to the masjid, allow them to serve others in a way that from early on, that give them that sense of accomplishment. The fourth way is to solve problems, or have the child be a problem solver, meaning teaching your children to make their own decisions and allowing them to, again, developmentally ready. So the child is able to choose their own clothes or wear a specific color shoe. Let them make those decisions. Resilient children are able to articulate problems. They're able to consider different solutions and refrain from constantly, telling their children what to do. So we need to allow them space to make their decisions, because we eventually want them to be independent. And we don't want the child cannot suddenly become independent when they grow up. We need to start from them now when they are the earliest age. And we know if you have toddlers or preschoolers, they want to do everything independently, right? They wanted to tie their own shoe, they want to wear their own clothes. Allow them to do that. Allow them time to really explore and be able to give them opportunity to solve their own problems, because we want them to be problem solvers later in their life. Give them experience right now. The fifth one is to disciplining in a way that promote self-discipline or self-worth, meaning that you want to give them an opportunity to learn from their mistake, as I was mentioning before, but the way in which that gives them opportunity to become resilient, right? Self-control. Sometimes the way we discipline either helps them grow or erodes self-esteem. So be consistent with your ground rules. And if you feel that this is absolutely not acceptable, don't change that. Sometimes inconsistency really confuses the children about what's right and wrong, and really helps them to really glow, and give them logical consequences, give them natural consequences. So if they do something, if they spill something, don't have them lock in the room for 2 days. Maybe allow them to clean the floor. That is their consequence, that they are going to drop everything and clean the floor, and just really allow them that natural consequences. And I would like to add for myself that believing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is probably the biggest resilience. Our faith teaches us to be resilient, and we want to teach our child to be, we want to raise our children to be God conscious, and we want to teach them to the ways of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Quran and Al-Bayt. And I love one of the ayat of the Quran, the surah, in Surah Inshirah, ayat 5 and 6, that says that innamal yusra yusra, innamal yusra yusra, meaning with difficulty there is relief. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that life is full of difficulty, and we need to teach our children that yes, there are going to be challenges in life, but how are you going to confront it? How are you going to be resilient with it? And another ayat that says that meaning we have created mankind in hardship. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is clearly telling us that we have been created in hardship, but there's going to be a relief. So Allah is a big teaching the children to be resilient is by way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala itself. So we need to do that by, first of all, taking care of ourselves. Like Sister Uzma said, absolutely resonating with me, because unless you take care of yourself, you are unable to take care of your children. So I think that is a key figure. When you take care of yourself, you have all these tools that you can utilize, because children are our future, and we as parents and guardians can control their outcome, and because we have control, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sister Azra. Your point that you said our faith teaches to be resilient, that's a very solid point for today's the program. And that's what our faith is. We believe on it strongly, that if we have hardship in our lives, there is always Allah who is there for us. And we also have a bonus as Ahl Badr Salam. So Jazakallah for that. Our next panel speaker is Sister Fahima Mahmood. Sister Fahima graduated with a business management degree, BSc honors, and worked in a law firm as a conveyancer. She later became a qualified life coach and certified NLP practitioner. She's also certified in mindfulness, existential positive psychology, group and facilitation of companies, institution, relationship, and couples coaching. Her website is coachfm.com. Sister Fahima has a natural ability to connect with people alongside the training she has acquired, the skills, techniques, and tools, believing that everyone can empower themselves to achieve anything they set their mind to. She has produced on many TV channels, including Elidat TV, Imam Hussein TV, with her own shows, and appeared on several more. She recently hosted her own weekly show called Single Muslim, live on British Muslim TV. She has recently discussed the challenges of finding a partner during lockdown on many mainstream media outlets such as the Metro Lifestyle, the Herald, Yorkshire Live UK, BBC, Asian Network, Press Associations, BBC News, and more. Her today's topic is Neuroscience of Change, a Positive Mindset.
Thank you so much, Sister Saba. Thank you so much for the team and Ahlul Bayt Media, especially Brother Hassan, for including me amongst these esteemed speakers. Assalamu alaikum to everybody. And I would like to also say that I want to acknowledge and respect everybody behind the team for putting this together. It takes a lot of work, and thank you so much again for having me. It's only recently that I actually started getting interested into neuroscience, and it's a huge topic, but my sort of speciality was mainly in the neuroscience of change and confidence, especially when it came to organizations. But at the same time, within organizations, obviously, we are individuals who are working there, and we have to understand people. So when it comes to change, a lot of the things that even our previous speakers, especially Sister Azra, has mentioned when it comes to our brain and our mind, and a lot of the terminology I might have to sort of like say again and echo, which is amazing that we all seem to be on the same sort of level of thinking. But unfortunately, I'm going to be real. When it comes to our communities and it comes to even our parenting skills or individuals, we do not have the skills, we do not have the knowledge, we do not have the understanding. Even if we have faith, we don't even understand how to actually practice it. And when it came to me studying all of this, especially when it came to a journey of personal development, that's when I realized that my faith made more sense and my studies made more sense because of my faith. So it worked hand in hand. But I had to take an active role, and I had to obviously put myself in it, which a lot of us don't. And even if we do, we have to dig a lot deeper, just like Sister Farzana has mentioned and Sister Uzma. And there's so many techniques that we have all worked in the same sort of field in sort of, you know, similar areas. And we give these kinds of, you know, strategies and tools for individuals to learn. But I wanted to go a little bit deeper into the core, which probably resonates more with our previous speaker, Sister Azra, with regards to our mind. The brain and the mind are totally different, but it does flow with regards to your thoughts, and it activates certain areas in the brain in order for us to function in a particular way. And what happens when it comes to individuals and change? when there's a proposed change, our behavior is driven by our emotions, whether it's positive or negative. And obviously, it does activate certain areas in our brain, which will work to our advantage, and it will signal in order to serve us in whichever area that we need. Now, when it comes to also our society, we always think that we do not change with age, with time, and with habits. And of course, it may be a bit harder. But as Sister Azra also mentioned, that neuroplasticity has now opened up that kind of learning that our brain can change constantly throughout our lifespan. And of course, as we are younger, we can take on a lot more easier ways of learning and wiring our neurons and stimulate our brain. But even at an older age, if we have more experiences and new learning in life, we can definitely change our habits. It does take a lot of time. And it depends. What I'm saying is very genetic. A lot of the times with neuroscientists, they normally do their studies on a case-based system. So it may not apply to everybody, but even changing habits, it may take 21 days. For example, if you are already exercising 3 times a week and you want to change to 5 times a week, maybe a lot less. But if you didn't exercise at all and you want to add that to your actual routine, then yes, it may take weeks or even months, but it has to be consistent, and you need that sort of process behind you and accountability, or someone who is maybe a coach, whichever way it may fall. The thing is, when it comes to our brain, we have to understand that it functions needing oxygen, glucose, and mental activity. And our everyday is not balanced. We do not rest, as Sister Uzma said. We do not rely on the fact that we can be bored, and we can be okay being bored, because that's when our brain is more creative and active. And even as parents, when our children complain of boredom, we want to just give them a tablet, some sort of game, or entertain them and take them out and do this, that, and the other. But when you realize that in the olden times, probably, maybe 2 decades ago, when there wasn't so much social media and applications and lots of technology involved to entertain ourselves, we were bored a lot. And that actually gives the mind more innovative creativity to build. And we are actually using what we have within us, in our mind, the brain power. So we have to think that everything we think, feel, and do is born in our brain, right? Our brain always finds what it searches for. That's the other thing when we talk about manifestation, when it talks about being positive, and what you feed, it's going to actually repeat constantly. If you are being negative, if you are being doubtful, then it's going to actually search for that and create more of it. These are not just sayings in psychology. This is actually sayings in neuroscience. And when it comes to depression and anxiety and things like that, it is not even recognized by majority of neuroscientists, including Dr. Caroline Leaf, based in South Africa. She actually says it's not an illness. It is actually a natural response to something which is wrong, which it just needs to basically set an alarm bell to know that you are feeling in a particular way. So you need to actually do something. It's really important that we acknowledge anxiousness, depression, and feeling in a particular way, and then to take the steps and not allow it to creep on and make it part of our another habit and routine. Now, sleep. Sleep allows recovery of emotions and physical activity, as well as helps you process information that has been collected throughout the day. So you're smarter when you sleep more. And if you don't have the time to sleep, then have these power naps during the day. Now, I can go into a 2-hour lecture that I've just listened to, and I cannot do it in 20 minutes, unfortunately, but I'm going to give you some practical tips to take away today so you can actually readjust your daily routine to be a bit more balanced, to get more oxygen and glucose into your brain, to help you basically respond better, to actually have a better sort of way of being. And sugar is not good for your brain, for example, and anything that upsets your gut, your tummy, and bad for your sort of like gut will actually have an adverse effect in your brain as well. For example, if you have lots of people I know have lots of migraine, and they may start by quitting dairy or wheat and sugar, and that can also help. Again, it is a case-by-case study and situation. And we always think that multitasking is the biggest, sort of like thing that we want to sort of say that we can do so many things at once, but actually it's the biggest waste of time and of brain power, because we are doing tasks which is switching our brain constantly, and it's actually allowing us to make more mistakes. So when you are focused on one thing at a time, you are giving more quality. For example, when you're at home, you give your children, your family 100%. When you're at work, you give your work 100%. When you are taking rest and time, you give that 100%. Now, when we're saying we're multitasking, we are switching our brain way too much, and we're doing it much more now, especially with the way in which we are working. For example, if we're eating at our desk in front of the computer, instead of actually taking time out to walk and move, that can actually help us even come back to ourselves and actually be more productive, for example. So yeah, I'm just basically being real. I can give you lots of, sort of technical sort of like, situations with regards to analyzing the brain, which I will go into briefly, but I'm just trying to make it really, really easy for you to understand that, these are not just things that are just in the air. These are now people that are studying the brain, and the mind and the brain is totally separate, and we need to make sure we take it serious. So single focus work is more valuable and it's better quality. Now, when we go into looking at, for example, change, majority, if there was like, I'm looking at now the studies by Cameron and Green, 2009, and they had basically had organizational change being researched, and they found it very difficult with individuals. So when we're thinking about, doing things with children who are learning, or with just general information individuals, again, it is really difficult. We don't have that learning. We don't have the knowledge. We don't have the understanding. And these are people in organizations who are talented, and they still find resistant to change. For example, the survey did actually came up with a response that majority of them were negative. 44% people were anxious of the change, and 22% were confused. 23% were frustrated, and 24% were tired. Because at the end of the day, when we talk about all these techniques and strategies, we don't have the right leadership in order to build the trust, in order to take people through a process of the change, to actually understand that this change is going to be beneficial, to actually make that person even be engaged with regards to that change. So a lot of things do happen in our brain. Now, the brain has a huge amount of activity and lots of functions. And I could probably spend like a whole lecture over months trying to describe it. But I'm going to pick on one model, which is the Truan Brain Model by MacLean 1990, which describes the brain in three different sort of aspects, which is the mammal brain, the lizard brain, and the human brain. Now, the difference between the brain areas, which is the lizard brain, and that is staying alive, breathing, heartbeat, digestion. The mammal brain, the limbic system, which is for safety, emotions, connection, memory, and habits. And the human brain, which is the neocortex, which is the change, which is again what Sister Azra mentioned about the prefrontal cortex, which is the way in which we think, the talk, perception of the world, learning, decision-making, collaboration, and personality. And the thing is, these sort of different activities in the brain is important. But even though I mentioned that neuroplasticity exists, unfortunately, it is part of the human brain. And when it comes to the lizard brain and the mammal brain, we can easily use that part and change it. But when it comes to the human brain, it takes a lot more energy. That's why I started off saying that we need to understand our body. We need to understand what we need to take in when it comes to even our diet, and how to actually balance when it comes to our physical activity, because all of that makes a difference to our functioning. And we need to be, I always take a holistic approach. It's not just, you having these techniques, it's you changing your entire entire existence, literally. When you come for coaching for me, it's literally analyzing what you're doing from, 9 till, the time that you go to bed and the wake up, and basically readjusting to making sure that you eat properly, you sleep properly, you're taking in the rest that you need, because people say we don't have time. But, why is it that some people can actually do so much in one day? It's not like as if, the 24 hours is extended for certain people. No. And they still look younger, they still look better, and you can actually reverse your age. But this all comes with change. Now, we are resistant to it as humans because we want to be comfortable. We want to sleep and eat and behave in a particular way, even when we are not happy. We actually tolerate a lot. We actually adapt a lot quicker and easier. And, as much as even our subconscious mind is controlling us, when we have the knowledge that we can actually have ways of changing that, it does take time. Habits do take time to change. Again, that's another case-by-case study. Like I said, it can take time depending on the individual, the scenario, and what you want to change. And we need to be a lot more aware of our brain, because our brain and our mind is activated. And the one part of the brain is the thalamus, which receives information from your senses, your vision, your hearing, your touch, your taste. And it decides what to do to it, with it. So basically, it sends it to the relevant areas of the brain. And we need to constantly understand that we are sending messages to our brain, the way in which we speak, the way in which we think, the way in which we are feeling. All of that is sending messages to our brain. And then our brain is responding in sort of some sort of way, which is either negative or positive. But a lot of the time we are thinking in negative. We are thinking in, our past experience. We have this perception as to how our past experience is actually the way in which we have perceived the world. We have perceptual bias. So we don't perceive the world passively as it is. We notice objects with which our brain marks as important, but our brain is constantly guessing based on previous experiences to allow quick reaction times to environmental stimuli. So our experiences and expectations alter what we notice top to down. And our memory. We always rely on our memory. I'm sorry, I am really going fast because I want to give you the information, and hopefully you can ask me questions at the end. But even our memories are biased, okay? Our brain stores information which is meaningful to us. And meaning is coded in the forms of emotion, how we felt. So over time, say if you had a relationship and it broke down, all you're going to remember are the bad points, and you're going to recall that, and you're going to remember that, and that's what's going to really activate it, and it's going to trigger you, and it's going to bring out the different emotions, and that's what it is. And these parts are connected, therefore our emotions change the way we perceive information. And the same events are remembered differently in different states. So if that person passed away, all you're going to try and remember is the good points. So it's funny how the model of our world is. Our brain's job is not to construct the model of the world as it is, but the one which helped us most to survive. And our models are based on experiences we had, the way we perceived them. It's not necessarily truth. It's basically our interpretation of it. And each of us has a different model of the world, which we also know in psychology, we learn in perception map. And our brain is developed in many sort of ways with our genes, our epigenetic, genetic modifications, experiences, memory, interpretations, actions, things like that. And obviously the neurons, which is, part of the neuroplasticity, which contains over 86 billion neurons, the brain, that's what it contains. The cells, which contain information, the neurons communicate to one another, and it can totally change constantly and connect to convey specific tasks. And each thought, action, and feeling is created and activated in a certain neural network or group of networks, which is the brain network, highways. And again, these networks define our default thoughts, emotions, profile, and personality. Our personality, now, our habits, most practice and embodied experiences, and our perception, beliefs, past experience creates the filters that we see in our world through. Our brain becomes more suited to perform the actions we practice the most often. That's why we say that we are habitual beings. The subconscious mind, it controls us constantly. And again, it is responding and giving and sending signals to the brain, the networks, and it's becoming stronger and stronger. So that's why self-care, knowing, how your body works, what your body needs in order to replenish, is important and vital, because this is constant signals to your brain in order for you to actually change. So in order for us to change, our brain needs to change first. And brain plasticity, as I mentioned before, is happening throughout our life, but we need that energy. We need constant stimulation. We need to basically not be an automatic sort of stage where we are just doing the same things over and over again. We actually can evoke instinctive fear and anxiety, which again was mentioned before in the amygdala, which basically we naturally avoid stimulus situations where we experience pain, and we seek the ones that we experience pleasure from. So basically what I'm trying to say is that we naturally are going to be wanting to not go towards challenges, go towards change, overcome adversity and things like that. But the more we realize that even in our faith, even in psychology, now even in neuroscience, where the brain is telling us that we need to have new experiences, we need to be uncomfortable, we need to have all of these things in our life that actually is going to create us, not just having resilience, but actually having a better nervous system, so that we don't activate the stress and the adrenalines, which is actually going to cause cortisol, which is going to cause less blood, sort of transmission to our brains. It's going to make our thinking in a tunnel vision and rejecting new ideas and blocking creativity. We want to have a nervous system which is parasympathetic, which is going to release dopamine and increase motivation, release the oxytocin, and basically help us become more creative and having better decision-making processes. However, even though it takes a long time to actually change our habits, really, really important daily tips for you to have is to firstly change your habits by reducing the mental load and taking lots of quality breaks throughout the day. So we do need to rest, we do need to sleep, we do need to eat better, we do need to exercise. These are basic things that we are not doing, and then we're complaining about life not being the way it wants, when all it takes is something so simple. Even though I've gone through all these neurological, neuroscientific terminology, it just boils down to your everyday living. And it's so simple, and it comes down to implementing small changes. And if you want to make, a difference to your habits, then definitely, start off. If you, for example, never exercise, do it once a week and do it for the next, 6 months even, or 6 weeks in that way. Then increase to 2 weeks. But no, as soon as we have a resolution, say even we're coming up to Ramadan, we want to change our lives, change. And every Ramadan for the last 5-10 years, we look back, we've not actually accomplished those changes. Why? Because we need to have that ideal visionary box. We need to take our time, because our body cannot, especially at an older age, actually manage those changes if we're going to overload ourselves. We need to take small steps, but be consistent. And a lot of people work really hard and do all of these things, especially in business, and then, sleep only 5 hours. Well, no, then you're just going to burn out early. You want to live where you can be consistent over time, and you can maintain right till your deathbed, burn out when you're in your 30s or 40s, or even earlier nowadays. So you need to reward yourself for taking these actions and actually making sure that the self-care is really taken care of. You need to also manage your brain stress responses by being aware of the triggers. And you need to actually create a supportive social accountability group or a coach in order to help you do that. So in summary, which I'm going to quickly read, just to finish off, is that to say that the brain does not construct the model of the world as it is, but as it has been helping our survival. All right. This model further affects your perception and decision-making filters, and the brain is becoming more and more suited to perceive the world that way. It's not the reality, it's how you see it. The way you see the world is different from the way I see the world. And your personality is shaped by your genes, experiences, and habits you practice most often. So understand your habits, understand who you are, and change requires intention, stress reduction, actions in small steps, consistency, and support. Very, very simple. Now, inshallah, we can actually take steps because we need to feel empowered. We need to be leaders in our home, not just in our businesses and organizations, so that we can actually fill other people's cup because we are completely full ourselves first. I hope I haven't taken too much time, and inshallah, if you have further questions, I can go into more details, but I just wanted to give you a quick overview about change being difficult, but absolutely needed and necessary. And yes, your brain will respond to how you behave daily. So take care daily and take small steps to make those changes. Take care. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, sister, for your information that you gave. It was really helpful to understand. And sometimes we're just gonna get ourselves into so much worries that we don't see the solution. So these are really helpful steps, and I'm hoping that we practically apply them on our daily lives. That being said, I wanted to invite the next speaker of our today's event, which is our last speaker, and then inshallah we'll have few questions from our audience. Our last speaker is Sister Mehnaz Shabir. Sister Mehnaz is president of Shabir Advisors, a consultancy company focusing on planning, marketing, public relations, diversity, transformation, and education on a national and international basis. Sister Mehnaz Shabir is on the faculty of Avila University and has been a lecturer in the Command and General Staff of College at Fort Leavenworth. She is a certified trainer for the Department of Justice Community Relations Services to educate law enforcement, government agencies, and school officials nationwide. Sister Mehnaz earned a bachelor's degree in business administration and an MBA from the University of Missouri, Kansas City. She is very involved in community NFP boards ranging from the Crescent Peace Society, Truman Medical Centers, Overland Park Police Board, and Greater Kansas City Interfaith Council. She has written for a wide range of publications and participated in television, radio, and streaming broadcasts. She has 4 adult sons and 4 grandchildren. Today's Sister Mehnaz's topic is balancing being a Muslim woman professional and having a family. Jazakallah.
Thank you, Sister Saba, and thanks to all the other women on today's panel. It was very informative. I picked up lots of little tidbits here and there. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Salam alaikum to the listeners around the world, and thank you to Ahlul Bayt TV and Brother Hassan for today's program. So for the next few minutes, I'll be talking about balancing being a Muslim woman professional and having a family. So you heard quite a bit of my bio there, so you got a sense of who I am. And then I'm offering 6 shares on today's topic. So as was stated, I'm born in the United States, and I've lived in various cities in America over the last 6 decades. And I currently live now in Kansas City, and I've lived there for 40 plus years. So professionally, you've heard all about the background. And so, getting the education, working for 18 years and as a vice president of strategic planning business development for a healthcare system, and then starting my own consulting business that I've been doing now for the last 18 years, and doing several speaking engagements so people have a better understanding of who we are in different avenues. So with military and law enforcement, churches, interfaith groups, That's been kind of my passion. So with all of that, and also being involved in politics and civic organizations, there's a lot of things that one can be involved in. So that gives you the sense of my professional life. And personally, so I was married for 27 years, and then I became a widow 15 years ago. I do have 4 adult sons and 4 grandchildren, which I totally adore. My parents immigrated to America in the 1950s from Hyderabad, India. And my father was a textile engineer and later worked for an international paper company. He has several patents in his name. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And so I think the reason I'm giving some of this background is because we're talking about balancing, right? So we have to understand like where we come from. So like when I was in school, I was involved in brownies and Girl Scouts, newspaper clubs, student council, debate, things that I'm sure your kids are all involved in. That's very important. So my first share, number one share, is that parents have such an important role in raising our children and not to underestimate this. So in the Quran, Surah 4, verse 11, your parents and your children know not which of them are nearest to you in benefit. So the more time you spend with your children and educate them in their religion, the easier it's going to be for when they get older. And it's not only religious education. I'm going to focus on daughters because one day they will become women and they'll be juggling their lives. So teach your daughter what she needs to know in life. And I'm not just talking about cooking. No way. In fact, I would say all children need to learn how to cook. No, I'm talking about life skills, how to interact with people who are older than them. Show them how to manage a checkbook. There's a lot of preparation that goes into doing taxes. They may hire somebody, but you still have to put all your information together to give to someone. Have them find a part-time job. Get involved in different activities like Girl Scouts and participate with them. Get involved in sports. Now, this is a big thing personally for me because when I was living in New Jersey, as a grade schooler, there was only one opportunity for competitive sports, and that was ground hockey, and that wasn't my thing. So, and even when I was in high school, I remember taking golf as a gym class, and the physical education teacher didn't think girls should play golf. Instead, we just walked around the golf course. So it wasn't things didn't change in America until Title IX came, and where schools had to put resources for girls to play sports. And for me, it was too late, but I encourage girls to play sports. It's a lifelong skill. It's not just for the brain, but it shows how to work with a team, which is going to help them later when they work in an office setting of some kind. And it's going to be helpful throughout their whole life, especially when they get older and they're now a grandmother and staying active. There used to be an event called Take Your Daughter to Work Day, and I think that's changed now to include both boys and girls. But this is important to share with your children your work so they can see what you do. Even with working from home these days, share with them what you're doing in your meetings, how you're handling. They have to see this because this is something that we want them to learn and not be surprised by later down the road. When I was raising my children, I would take my boys to meetings and I would introduce them to the adults. And so they would learn the appropriate behaviors of, shaking hands and saying, how do you do? And speaking with a louder voice and not being shy. I remember one time taking my son, my second son was 10 years old at the time. And he had gone to the meeting and we were heading to the car heading home. And he said, Mom, we were networking, weren't we? And I said, yeah, he understood what we were doing. We were networking. And so I think that's a very important life skill is networking. So going back to life skills, while growing up, my dad would say to me, I want you to have these life skills and education in your back pocket. And besides my religious upbringing, I'm glad I had these skills because it's helped me grow and use and share over the years. So share number 2, choose your spouse well. Your wife is your garment and you are their garment. From Quran, ayah number 2, verse 187. So I married when I was still in college, and my husband was supportive of me finishing my undergrad and graduate degrees. Don't underestimate choosing the right husband. I know there's a lot of information out there about choosing ikhlaq and a whole bunch of other religious qualities, so I'm not going to go through this area. They're all important. I just want you to focus a little bit more about having a supportive husband. Because if you don't have a supportive husband, this topic of balancing isn't going to happen. It's non-existent. Before marriage, my then potential spouse and I discussed continuing my education. He wouldn't have been my husband unless he agreed. So my husband said, yes, you need to finish your education, and he supported me on this. And then we waited till I was done with my undergrad and we started our family. A sidebar here is that I know a lot of young women today want to wait until they graduate from college to get married. And there are pros and cons to this decision. And I'll just speak from the point of view of not waiting until you're done with all your education. Having a supportive husband will allow you to finish your education. Your parents can still help with your college expenses, but the two of you grow together and you experience life when you're younger. You're not set in your ways, and it's just a lot easier. But the key is to have a supportive husband. Again, I keep on underlying supportive husband and discussing these issues prior to marriage so you're both on the same page. So share number 3. Now you are a parent. This share goes back to the first one about parents have such an important role in raising children. But this share is, now that you're a parent, play with your kids. This is such an important effect in training, nurturing your children. Our leaders in Islam have stressed the importance of this issue and recommended highly to us. It is narrated from Prophet, peace and blessings upon him. The person who has a child should behave like a child with him. And it's narrated from Imam Ali alayhi salam. Anybody who has a child should, for his or her training, bring themselves down to their level of childhood. I've always enjoyed playing with my kids. I had 2 of them before I was 28 years old, and there's a trifecta about parenting. You have to be the guardian of protecting them. You have to be the guardian of nurturing them both physically and spiritually, and then the guardian of educating them religiously, scholastically, as well as socially. In many ways, it's done simultaneously, but it's also a hierarchy as the child grows. And by the time the child's considered a legal adult in America, that's 18 years old, your child should have all these life skills so they can be successful in college, marriage, work. You have taught these skills so they have them in their own back pocket, in their own toolbox, whatever the symbolism you want to use. The idea is that they be able to pull it out when they need it. My share number 4, your parents. For this share, I'm using the resource from Islamic Family Life by Sayyid Akhtar Rizvi, where he looks at the Quran and the explanation from Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam. And your Lord has decreed that you worship none but him, and that you be kind to parents. Behave kindly with them and do not compel them to bring their needs to your attention, but fulfill their requirements before they have to tell you, even though in reality they are not in need of your assistance. If one or both of them attain old age in their life, say not to them a single word of contempt and repel them not, but address them in terms of honor and respect and of kindness, and lower to them the wing of humility. And whenever you look at them, look with kindness and gentleness. Do not raise your voice upon their voices, nor your hands above their hands, nor walk before them. And say, my Lord, bestow on them your mercy, even as they cherish me in childhood. And that ayah is from number 17, verses 23 through the 24. So this is something I'm in the midst of as I speak today. I'm staying with my elderly parents for this month and will continue to do so through Ramadan, inshallah. In fact, they're listening to me in the next room. As I take care of their needs and wishes, I'm behaving in a way of service. anticipating their needs and doing my best to fulfill them while still handling my work via Zoom calls. And I remind myself how many nights they were up taking care of me when I was a baby, a child, or even in the most difficult days, lots. So doing what I'm doing now is nothing compared to all that they've done for me. So when I do my prayers and I say my du'as, I tell this to my kids so they understand this, because we do and then we teach, right? By the children watch from our actions. So when I do my prayers and say my du'as, after I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive me and accept my prayers, I pray for my parents, and then I pray for my children, for many other family members and family and friends. So the parents are the priority. So not to forget this one, especially as they become older, as we're trying to juggle our family life, our professional life. Our parents are very important. And share number 5, struggle. So Quran verse number 13, ayah 11, God does not change the condition of a people unless they change what is in themselves. As I grew professionally in my career, I had 7 a.m. meetings and 7 p.m. meetings that went to like 9 o'clock. I had to juggle all this while doing everything that I just went up above with the kids and the spouse, all of that. And I have to say, I didn't do everything well. And when you're struggling at home and at work, it becomes challenge. And then family life sometimes doesn't go well. And then you may have some health issues, and even death could cross your path. So what do you do then when you have all these challenges? So was I always successful? No. Was I challenged? Yes. Did I want to say the heck with this? Yes. Was it easy to forgive myself on my failures? No. Should I have forgiven myself? Yes. It isn't easy. It's a balancing act, walking that tightrope of life. Struggling is a part of it. There's no way to live a stress-free life. I wish there was. There's no happy pill there. However, I would say that faith has a way of smoothing out the peaks and the valleys. I would say that my faith, though it ebbed and flowed throughout my youth, as I grew older and put my life into more of the teachings of my faith, I found more successes, and success is not just quantified by dollar signs. I feel that is a point in my life when I can put my head down and when I go to bed, and I have a peace of knowing I've done what I possibly could do. And some of this comes with age, but I think if someone sat down with me when I was in my 20s or 30s and speaking to me as I'm speaking to you right now, it would have helped me a whole lot, because I didn't have anyone talking to me in this way of how you bring the balance of your life and how you deal with the struggle, and how you can go back to your faith to help you with those struggles. In my 50s, when I became a widow, it wasn't easy either. But again, with my faith and my parents, my children, family, and friends, the struggle of going through all of it helped me get to the other side. So I'd like to conclude with the last share, number 6, inshallah, if Allah wills it. Sometimes we say it so quickly, it just comes out of our mouth, inshallah. Oh, you're going to see me? Oh, inshallah. Are you coming to visit? Oh, inshallah. It just comes out. We don't really think about what that really means. So the next time you use that phrase, which is probably going to be sometime this evening, think about what it really means. If Allah wills it, getting good grades, getting married, having children, getting a job, the house, whatever, if Allah wills it. Professionally, I'm a strategic planner. I did this for corporations, organizations in my life. I thought it was me who got us from A to Z. Yeah, it was me. It was my hard work. But I had help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when things went well, it was from Allah's blessings. And if it didn't go well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't want that for me. So you do your best, you have faith, and inshallah, I hope these 6 shares will help you balancing being a Muslim woman, professional, and having a family life. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum Assalam. Thank you so much for your wonderful words. So this was the end of our panel speakers discussion, and now I just wanted to quickly move on to our questions here. So I would request all of our speakers to, if you can turn on your cameras, and we'll have just a group discussion. So whoever wants to answer the question. So I have a couple of questions already that I wanted to mention. One of the questions that I have, it's, I think with the pandemic, I have been more frustrated or just tired. And I feel that I'm taking it out on my family. What if I realize I may be very toxicity at the moment? Whoever wants to take that as a volunteer.
What was the actual question?
Sure. So the question is, this is one of our audience from New York. Due to the pandemic, I've been more frustrated or just tired, and I feel that I'm taking it out on my family. What if I realize I may be the very toxicity at the moment?
I don't mind answering that one.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me just, this question is not very clear, so let me just give me 1 moment. I'll just take one more. Okay, there's another one. What if there is some negative relationships or influences in the immediate family? How do I deal with that or approach it? From California.
Assalamu alaikum. I don't mind taking that question. When it comes to relationships, I usually deal a lot with relationships as well. And yes, I think it is quite, you know, it's really challenging to have people that, you know, you are close to through blood, you know, or even if it's in-laws or whatever it is that you have a toxicity. But we need to analyze what is that, you know, toxicity? What does it actually mean for you? And at the end of the day, we cannot control other people, but we can set ourselves our own boundaries, and we can still have respect, and we still have to have the mannerism and etiquette, akhlaq, in a particular way. And again, we are responsible for what we allow in our lives. And at the same time, we have to have boundaries, and we need to understand our values. And it's a very, you know, general question, and it depends how they are infringing in your personal space and in your life. And obviously, you know, if you are involved in a family and a relationship where you can talk to people that are close to you, who can get on board and especially speak to them, or you yourself, if you are able to do that, that's probably okay. But if not, I think it's really important that we have to concentrate on our lives, because I think a lot of the times we invite these people who are, you know, deemed to be toxic to actually control us. And, you know, we allow these situations to manifest even more because we actually, you know, make it bother us as much. It really does depend on the situation, the scenario. And if you do want to get in contact personally, I do take calls, and I do actually speak to people and give these kind of consultations as well to allow you, because obviously, again, it is a case-by-case situation depending on what it is and who they are. And, you know, sometimes, you know, again, like how Sister Uzma even said, you know, changing your perception and the meaning of it, you know, it doesn't really allow it. And I always go back to what is said in the Quran in Surah Ar-Ra'd, verse 11, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, you know, people's condition will not change around them unless you change the condition within yourself. So again, it comes down to, you know, not just the personal development aspect of it, but dealing with adversity, with toxic relationships, and especially when it's people that you cannot actually avoid, then you need to also, again, have some self-reflection. And I think that if we make our adjustments ourselves, then it can filter to other people's treatment towards us. But again, if you do want to get in touch personally, one-to-one, I'm very much available to speak to.
That I hope she or he is listening for that. So let me just go back to the first question, and I'm just going to rephrase that question. And if Sister Farzana would, you know, wanted to answer it. So the question is, during pandemic, I have been more frustrated or just tired, and I feel like I'm taking it out on my family. So what can be done? I feel like I'm in the toxic mindset. So what is the solution? How can I get out of it?
Thank you very much. I think firstly, the issue that we're facing during the pandemic is we're not in our usual routine. We've had to build up a new routine, but there's not much of a routine because a lot of the time we've been in lockdown. Now, obviously, I'm not sure what part of the world this question's come from, but I know many of us all over the world have had long periods where we've been at home all together in a small space, particularly in some of the colder countries where you're not able to come out anywhere because it's too cold to be outside. So I think what needs to be done is a new routine needs to be developed, and to make sure that there are enough times for breaks for yourself. And I think in the last show that we did, show number 3, I mentioned then that a good thing to do is to make a quiet space or a quiet room or something like that, where make it part of the family that it's normal that if you need that time out, you go and have that time out. I've been telling my kids that, you know, after 9 o'clock, I'm sorry, even if you don't have school, for me, I need that time. I need that time out. And until and unless we take our time out as parents, we have time to contemplate, have time to recharge, eat what we want, drink what we want for a little while, you know, anything that just gives us a bit of energy boost and refreshment in our day, or even in our evening ready for the next day, we must do that. So pick a time of the day that you think would be best for you to recharge. Even if it's over a cup of coffee and then you revisit again in the evening, do that. Make sure you mark at least two times a day to start with. And if you can manage 3, then 3 times a day, where you have a few minutes to yourself, where you're able to do whatever you want in those 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then try and give yourself some time in the evening before you go to bed to kind of wind down, think about your day, and think about how you can better plan for the next day, inshallah, giving yourself more time for yourself. Inshallah, with that, I think you will find that your energy will start to increase again rather than deplete, and you will be able to spend more quality time with the family. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay.
Can
Thank
I
you.
can I just piggyback on
Sure.
that for a second? I'm sorry, I can't have
Mhm.
my camera on now. I've got my kids around, but that's a really valid point by Sister Farzana. Definitely, it will help, because self-care is the primary thing that you have to do when you're feeling overwhelmed. But also conversations, like being open enough to say, look, I am overwhelmed. Like, actually have that conversation, have a family meeting. And I would encourage that you have a family meeting every week, a set day, maybe Friday evenings or whatever, you know, there's a set time that you have a family meeting, and you sit and you can have an agenda that's rotating, and somebody can actually chair the meeting, and it becomes quite a fun activity. And you can end it with something like a Kahoot game where you're actually interactive. And sometimes you can create the Kahoot games in a way that they're actually family games, so you can create questions that are relevant to the siblings, to the parents, so that it actually becomes a really, you know, it's really funny for kids when they hear something that they can relate to about themselves, and the family has noticed it. So it's just a thought that, you know, maybe the first meeting might feel a little bit awkward, but in that you can use the space to say, I am actually feeling really burnt out. And we all are under stress because we're locked in, like Sister Farzana says. And it's a really good thing to notice, and not to be hard on yourself because you're feeling like, but rather allow those emotions in, you know, accept that they're there rather than pushing them down. And instead of bursting out, which is the first thing anybody goes through, you know, to, if you're not really tuned into your emotions, or you're not giving them the time to understand what they're trying to say to you, but really take that time out for yourself, but also let your family know how you're feeling so they can actually support you, inshallah.
Thank you so much. So this next question, I wanted to take it to Sister Minaz. I feel not having a career as per society norms will make my life less worthy instead of just focusing on what makes me happy or my family happy. From New York.
Okay, so the question is, if I don't have a professional life, will I be less?
No, so I feel not having a career as per society norms.
Oh, okay. Well, so, well, I would say that you should be happy with what this topic that I was given was balancing the professional life with being a Muslim woman. So you could take whatever how you're spending your time in your work at home or outside. You have to be able to balance what that is. If it brings joy to you, obviously you're going to work and you're earning money. I mean, that I think is the most important thing of how you use that money when you bring it into your family and sharing it with your family. So I think you can do both. If I don't know what you meant by the society norms, but maybe that could be, I could ask that and that person could answer that question. Like what would be the societal norms? Does anyone else answer?
I don't know what society norms she's referring to. However, what I'm thinking is might be like our community, mindset, like a Asian, Pakistani, Indian mindset,
Indian
like becoming a doctor, engineer.
Oh, one of those. Okay, yeah. Well, again, so my children, they chose different career paths right now. And so I think as a parent, you want to encourage your kids to be happy, to choose careers that you know that they will be gainfully employed. If you've chosen a path that you feel happy about and you're gainfully employed, I think you just have to do the education with your family now I'm talking about your parents, if that's the case, of letting them know that not everyone has to be Indian, doctors, lawyers, Indian chiefs. That's what I call them, because there used to be a game that we used to play. It had to be one of those three. And sometimes even when we look at spouses, that's what we're saying. We want a spouse that has, for our kids, this, and this. And when we do that kind of stuff, we are excluding a huge population of wonderful people. Just because they didn't chose to be a doctor. In fact, I can tell you, I work in the healthcare system. It's not fun right now being a doctor. Obviously there's the income that's there, but it's more you're becoming a business person. So I would say to, do the education with your family, and then be who you do the job that makes you happy and that you feel proud of.
Okay, thank you. I think I feel the same working within the IT industry. It's so hard to fit in, but I'm just trying, it's everyday struggle. Thank you. So the next question, I would like to take it to Sister Azra. You talked about working on your pain regardless of what kind, but how to cope with the pain of losing a loved one, especially during pandemic. You're on mute.
Can you repeat the question again, please?
Sure. So you talked about working on your pains, right? Different kind of pains, mind pain and heart pain.
Pain? Okay.
Was it your question?
I'm not
stress,
sure.
Right? So you talked about the stress, right?
Yes.
But how to cope with the pain of losing loved ones during, especially during pandemic? How to cope with that? That kind of stage, how to come out of it?
Well, I'm not sure if that specifically referred to my presentation, but I think losing a loved one is particularly very challenging and difficult to cope with because they are your loved ones. And I think it goes about down to your mindset and your belief, and really believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I think at that point, we need to really reflect back to our creator and really think about Inamal Yusra Yusra, and think about how to understand that yes, life is difficult and challenged, as I mentioned before, and losing a loved one is one of those challenges that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us. And we need to be able to understand that we're all here as a temporary phase, that we're going to go back to the creator. So I think it's really the mindset. I think once we have that understanding, yes, it is hard, it is painful, but it has to also look into what we are going to be, what we are left with, right? Yes, we've lost that loved one, but if we have what's around us right now at the moment, our husband, our children, whoever that we have right now, we want to make sure that we provide them the love and respect, and that what we can do with them So kind of balancing out. And I think a lot of our esteemed speakers have spoken about mindfulness, about how to be able to, bring ourselves together and really reflect on ourselves. And again, find that faith and then be able to be content with that, and stay away from the toxic stress that brings you to the position where you are yourself depressed or any other, those areas of medical condition that you want to avoid. And that is possible to do that with the faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Thank you so much. So this was the end of our Q&A session. I wanted to close the program. However, I wanted to give a minute or less to each speaker to say their closing statements. So I would like to start from Sister Farzana, if she can say a few words about today's program.
I must say it was an extremely interesting program. I've learned so much today. From all the speakers, from life skills, neuroscience, how to de-stress. I think it was a wonderful event today. So thank you, ladies. Thank you to the team. Thank you, Sister Sabah, as well for today. Very nice, enlightening event. MashaAllah.
Thank you. I would ask the same to Sister Uzma Naqvi.
First of all, if the kids come rushing in, it's on you. So I'm going to babble on really, really quickly to say hats off to you guys for putting this together, because this is the time that everybody needs a community feel, and for us to feel in a unified way we're dealing with something, and in one way or another everybody's dealing with some kind of a stress, and it's doubled and tripled and quadrupled right now because of just how the routines have changed and everything's different. So it's such a fitting time, and it's such fitting topics that you guys are choosing, and amazing platform, and it's always a pleasure to be with you guys, and you're doing superb. So well done, and thank you.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. Sister Azra Naqvi.
Thank you. I echo my esteemed colleagues here about the fact that the Ahl Bayt Media has done amazing in putting us all together, and especially for those who are in need of this reflection and time of really learning from each other. So my topic of children, I'm huge advocate for children and making sure that our children are getting the love and support they need, and especially during this pandemic time when we are struggling with our own issues and our own challenges. We wanted to hopefully looking at ourselves in order for us to take care of our children. So I'm hoping that this platform really provides them with that knowledge to make sure that when we are reflecting back to our kids, we are with the mindset and readiness to make sure that they're learning and experiencing good. So thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you. Sister Fahima Mahmood, please.
Thank you so much again for everyone that's spoken today. Again, I learned so much, and I just want to say that, look, we're all in the same situation. No one's better or worse. We are all here just showing that, if there's urgency to do something in life, I'm sure, I know a couple of sisters here, and I'd love to get connected with the other two that I'm not, familiar with, but just to say that I know from, our personal experience that we have come because we've actually created time and space, even with children, being single, being married, whatever the situation is, we are here just showing you that anything is possible and you can be exactly the same, if not better. And we're only here to support you. So do reach out, whatever it is that you want to do, whatever it is that you feel that you need that assistance with. We are only here to help and assist. And inshallah, we can have more collaborations and more connections. And it was an absolute pleasure to be sitting amongst all of you all today. Thank you.
Inshallah. Thank you. And I would ask the same to Sister Nina Shabir.
Yes. Again, thanks again to everyone for the participation. I've learned quite a bit since I was on the Zoom call for the whole time. And that was actually very interesting. There's a whole bunch of craziness with the pandemic and what it's caused, the stress and loneliness and of that nature. But I would also say doing something like this would not even have been possible before. So we have access now to so much information, and we can create our own community via this type of programming. So I think probably what may be something you may want to think about if it hasn't been done is to talk about death in the family, and how do you deal with it? I don't think people talk about it enough. I've done different types of programs, even in Muslim settings and non-Muslim settings, because it's important to have those kind of conversations and to be prepared. Even today, you know, we don't know when our time is, right? So it's important to have different legal documents prepared, and how the guardianship of our children. And there's a whole bunch of things that people don't think about, because if you talk about it, it's going to happen. So I think that could be another programming in the future, inshallah.
Thank you. And that being said, we really need to normalize conversations such as this that we had today to, you know, have, once we have everything in person, I wish that we would have more events like this to be in person as well. Not sure when, but that being said, I would like to say thank you to our audience. You have been wonderful, and our next program is on May 8th, and you will be seeing the advertisement on that on social media. That being said, thank you so much for your time, everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. اللهم كل وليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة ولي وحافظ وقائد وناصر دليل ومعين حتى تسكنه الزكاة وتمتعه فيها طويلا. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. في أمان الله. نار حيدر. اللهم أجلنا